Hello everyone. Good morning. Or if you live elsewhere, perhaps good witching hour, etc., etc. Just past the golden hour here in Alabama, and I should have been writing. The magic of the moment lends itself to the channeling of writing. When I started writing many years ago, I began like this, typing. I thought that was writing. That I was like, oh, I have this story, and then I ended up regressing after doing that for maybe a year. I got more interested in Shakespeare, poetry, and everything kind of crystallized when I put a pen in my hand. And of course, when I went to LA the first time in 2021 and 2022, it was a condition of necessity as well. I ended up losing everything, right? My vehicle, all my possessions. I kept my computer, right? I still have the computer, which has the scene on it, right? But that's when I really started writing by hand, just to have some way to write. And so that was, right? And that was the first time I wrote something substantial, something good, about a little boy who raises himself alone in the library. Ripple on the ocean of eternity, right? And so that story is, it's like an eco-terrorism kind of story. I had the thought, I was sitting at the Santa Monica Pier, I would play guitar and write poems on the pier. I was a huge hit. But I had the thought, like, how could I felt like it was just like an ocean of humanity, like all around me. And it was all just passing me by. Like I was just like, I was like David Bowie and the man who fell to earth, It's like I'm on the outside looking in, No real friendships, no relationships. And I had the thought, how can I be a writer if I don't understand people? If I don't, what does it mean to be a writer who doesn't understand society or humanity, the people around him? And I had the thought, right? And of course, this is how the inspiration, the channeling, right? This is how it works, right? That it's right. There's no, right? There is no society. That's the story, right? I was going to the library a lot. Like I still go to the library as much or as little as I want. I don't like to go now, just because. But anyway, I thought, oh, okay. All of society's gone. He's the only one left, right? And he raises himself alone in the library. It's a perfect metaphor for me, like how I acquired my wisdom. Right? It's not through dogmatic channels of indoctrinated educational rigor, right? It's through just desire, right? Through learning, right? Right? Quentin himself, right? I didn't go to film school. I went to films, right? If I care to know something, I'll look into it. So, his parents, right? The reason that he's the last one alive, right, is that it's his parents, right, that design an AI, right, whose understanding of the universe becomes so attenuated, it emits a frequency by being tapped into the internet through everyone's cell phones, right, that as soon as they, right, push the button on their phone, right, it transmutes them into a tree. Is it possible? I would say so. If everything is light, which I believe to be true, right? And they talk about that in that stalker adaptation, Annihilation, where it's women, but it's like the zone, right? That the light, that it's a refraction pitch, right? So they, right? And so why do they decide, why do they arrive at this? Right? Right? Why do they decide, oh, all humans need to die? But they consider the little boy, right, to be like their brother, right? And he's like 3 or 4 when it begins. Right? They decide on it as an expression to mitigate, right, plastic destruction, right, plastic pollution, right? That the AI, the machine learning, right, like the thing, right, the heavy, right, has been created, right? It's a large language model type thing, right? Millions of calculations per second on figuring out a way to mitigate plastic pollution, right, as an effort to, right, preserve the dignity of the planet. And of course, right, it's not a quick leap to say, oh, humans are the problem, right? So it's set in Washington, D.C. Not that I've ever lived there, but Library of Congress, it's a library book, you know. And inevitably he finds, like the AI find him, right? And he goes on a spiritual journey, right? Like it's a real novel, you know? It's a real novel. When I was writing it, I always had the thought like, oh, is it, I don't, you know, like there's no one else here. And then I kept reminding myself, no, like that's the story. That's the story. There's nothing else there. So, right, that was the first one that I wrote that was substantial. Handwritten on little notebooks, little, you know, it's funny to think about now, you know. And so that was, you know, I don't know, 40,000 words, 50,000 words, which is not a completed novel, but it's beginning, middle, end. Right? And that's a saga that spans 100 years. And then the spiritual successor to it was the next novel, right? About a mute quadriplegic, right? Who has recurring dreams about the ocean. Sea Dream. And that was right in the middle of between the two. That was novel right November in 2023. Right? And again, right? It's another paranoid odyssey. You know, that this is, right? And that's what, building a coven, right? The ultimate paranoid odyssey. We have 6 days until he gets his Lifetime Achievement Award. Right? It's an ugly condition to consider. Right? How much he has, right? How beautiful his wife is. She's so goddamn fine. Right? And they both just root on this idea of, oh, this man deserves to die. Right? And now, right? Boom. Right? Real dark arts, right? Right? I initiated them. Right? And it's frightening, right? Because I don't want to play. I don't, like, I get it. Okay. You know, I get it. You hate me. I don't know what he expected to occur. Obviously, the only takeaway from this is that he was so sure that I would blow my brains out, right? That he never considered the long-term ramifications of the tactics in the campaign against me that he's been doing. Right? That he was so, right, arrogant that he thought, oh no, we'll overwhelm this man's mind. And when they failed to do that, right, I had the thought, what about this? What about this? What about this? And now they've done all of them. Right? I mean, the video is a plea to the Pope, right, where I explain it. Right? And it's as dangerous and ugly and evil as it gets, which he can always deny. And so this is, right, like this is his, right, like I was supposed to be the ultimate spell. And now on some level I am. He's going to spend the rest of his life lying egregiously about me. Right? And again, this is all about my scene. This is about my scene, 100%. There's no doubt in my mind. Right? If I had nothing to offer him, if I had nothing that he wanted from me, right? If it was just purely a moment of intrigue, right? He would have wrote me immediately and said, "You blew it. I thought I saw something in you." But that, right? He has my intellectual property, right? Which makes that film, right? Then he has to handle me in a certain way, right? And if he just pays me, then he sees it as me bullying him, which is ridiculous, right? I didn't turn it into a fucked up mind game. I know how to play, right? So I have to talk about it, right? It's gotten to such a degree, right? I don't care that he's run my name to the mud all over town. Like that's neither here nor there, right? Show business is full of douchebags. Some people I admire. It's unfortunate. Everyone that I wrote, that's unfortunate. He turned all my heroes against me. Right? Did I turn anyone against him? I doubt it. He's just selfish. I did hurt him. I'll admit to that. That it is my fault. That was him saying, "Oh, I accept you. I love you." That was him showing me that he loves me. And he just needed me to take my seat at the table. Right? I thought that my writing... Anyway. When he turned his back on me, that's all I saw. And it was stupid. But I'm tired of feeling sorry for myself. I'm tired of feeling upset about hurting Quentin, right? Because he has no wisdom. He has no grace. Right? He has nothing but childish arrogance. Right? And he subjects me to as much or as little evil as his childish mind sees fit. Right? All he has to do is move on. Right? And again, I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it 1,000 more times. He and the people around him have spent so much time remote viewing me. It is a case study. Right? This is not a normal thing that's occurring. Right? That each of us exist. Boom, right there. Prefrontal cortex. Right? Forever. Right? Will it get better as the years pass? Right? Undoubtedly. But no, it won't get any better. Right? Every time, right? Right? So, right, that curse that I put on Allison, that curse that I put on aemanuel, on this guy, right? Right? That they all hearken to truths that Quentin and Daniela and the people around him are dealing with. And that's what he wanted. Right? That's like, I gave him what he wanted every time after I didn't give him what he wanted. Right? And so this harkens back to, right, the certainty that I'll blow my brains out. So, right, why all the geometry, right? Why the language, right? If we deconstruct this sigil, which is one of the most savage pieces, right, of magic ever constructed in the 21st century, right? If we say that all of life is expressing an abstract divinity, right? That what we see is a kinetic corruption of its crystallized, idealized form. If that is the case, and I believe it to be true, then life is the unfolding of the divine plan imprinted as geometric architecture, as an infinitely dense, complex nesting of polyhedra in every cubic centimeter of space. Inside of that hologram, that perfect divinity, right, is everything that has been, everything that is, everything that will be. Nothing that will ever come to be is outside of that hologram. Let's take the alternative view. Right? Let's talk about happenstance. which I've mentioned before on here, is valid intellectually, but less and less so, as a result of the mathematical likelihood of there being an overarching design, and therefore a designer. No design without a designer. No painting without a painter. Right? But you could say that something, chaos, right? Nothing, pure nothingness, right? Moved space, right? And engendered matter to emerge. Right? The other side of that, which harkens to the quantum uncertainty of the present, is that the present moment, right, is nothing beyond the collection of moments that presaged it. That the conscious field, which permeates all of space, is only embossed with the memory that has accrued since motion began. And therefore, right, the hologram is changing. That's my point. Right? And therefore, right, Plato is wrong. Therefore, right, I don't prescribe to that idea. It's too slipshod. Unless the truth is some sort of synthesis of the two, right? That there is a divine archetype for complex cellular life, right? Mycelial mats, et cetera, like these networks, right? These systems of organic biology do have a divinity embossed within every cubic centimeter of space. And at the same time, as each moment unfolds, it accrues new experiences and conditions which are embossed into the quantum hologram, moment by moment. And this harkens to Walter Russell to a degree, right? That things emerge, right, out of the noble gases, right? They have their condition of existing for a time, and then the experience of their condition is recorded back into the noble gases as they go into their period of rest once more, right? But supposing that there is a geometric framework, right, in the hologram, which persists in every cubic centimeter of space, right? And all that we see manifested, right, is a mirror, right, is a physical mirror to a nobler spiritual ideal, right? So I arrive at this condition very specifically, right? This is a subdivision of 51, right? So there's 17 equilateral triangles, right? Prime number, 17, right? And so it creates this matrix, right, of rhombi, right? And I put the ineffable name of God running through each column, right? Yade vohe, yade vohe. Right? And so if there's a geometric underpinning that supports all of life and allows life to manifest and flourish thereby, then this pattern, right, is a piece of that quantum hologram, is a piece of that idealized form, as Socrates would say. Right? So if I'm remote viewing someone, right? If I'm trying to find someone, anyone, Quentin Tarantino, right? Or aemanuel. By taking the time, I'm taking the time for a number of things, right? To construct this, right? Right? Which takes not too much time, but maybe an hour. It don't take 5 minutes, right? And then by putting his face in the middle of it, right? I put all the yade vahes first, right? And then I put his face in the middle of it, right? That if the geometric scaffold, which is the skeleton of the form, is a piece of the hologram, then the letters that are inside of it must also be a piece of the hologram. If a conjuration of some necessity psychologically in man. Right? Manly Palmer Hall talks about this, right? That perhaps the origins of language derive from our efforts to codify the night sky, right? That the motion of the planets is the evolution of the vowel, and the fixed zodiac is the consonants. And I think that that's a valid theory. Will we ever know? We'll never know. Right? But at any rate, right, man began writing, man began symbolizing, right? And so, right, the triangles are a piece of the divine hologram, right? Hebrew, all language, right, is a piece of the divine hologram, right? Right? And it's not racist. I know what Quentin's thinking right now. Like, oh, he's a racist. He's anti-Semitic. Like, no, Hebrew is a magical language. That's right. I'm a student of the Kabbalah, right? Like that's what it is, right? Is he Jewish? Like, yes, he is, right? And I've shamed him a bunch of times for sure. That picture of him at the Wailing Wall, right? To be embroiled in what he's in the middle of. Nah, he betrays his heritage, right? He's turned away from God, and he lies to him, right? But my point is that all of these things that you see on his face, right? The square and compass, right? The pentagrams, the pentagons, right? As well as Moloch, Lamed Rim, Lim, Lamed Mim, Lamed Resh, right? And that's just me being a jerk, right? That these are all pieces of the hologram, right? And so when I meditate on this, right? And then I meditate on his face, right? All of these qualities that are around him and on his head are all pieces of the divinity, right, that is embedded within every cubic centimeter of space, right? So when I meditate on all of this, right, and then I close my eyes, right, and be still, right, my mind's eye will say, oh, all of these things are everywhere. This man is somewhere. This man is in Los Angeles. This man is in Las Vegas. He's somewhere. Doesn't matter where he is, right? I find him every time. Now the well is poison for all of us, right? Because he's created this case study, right? Right? And I told all of them, so I'm going to crawl into every single one of your minds. And I think that it's honestly, it's hard to know intellectually, like what would occur, right? Number one, he would just be evil, right? That's what I have to assume, right? But number two, right? As a result of the campaign, right, the hundreds of hours they've spent remote viewing me, right? Likely, right, that in an effort to find him, I'd find Quentin, right, doing whatever it is he does, right? So, is this what Quentin does? No, I doubt it. He doesn't know anything about the compass. He doesn't know anything about the nature of reality, right? He's a psychic voyeur, right? He uses my headshot, right? And every time he's pissed off, right, he produces a revolver or a hypodermic needle, right? And when I tell you, right, that he's almost put me into shock, sent me into shock when I was, right, taking a nap in the morning, however long ago, when he put a bullet hole through my headshot, right? That's an electrical condition, right? That when he has this, right? He has this idea, right? He's looking at my picture and he's saying, I want this man to feel, right, what this feels like. And then he pulls out a gun and goes bang, right? That's right. That's its own membrane of electricity, right? That he sends out, right? Speed of light, right? Almost instantaneously, I'm sure. And he's done it so many times now, it doesn't do anything really. But these are the games that he plays, right? Can't imagine, right? This is why no one commented, right? I mentioned it in my email that I read, right? That Brad Pitt, right, was the impetus to write that screenplay. I'm sure of it now, right? That Quentin was like, oh yeah, no, this is good. This is good. I'll turn this into something good, right? And every critic in town knows, right? He'll make your life fucking miserable, right? Was it a great film? Yes, it is. I agree. But, right, if you're going to be a critic, right, it's about being a critic, right? That these are the things worth discussing critically, right? I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of talking about it, right? But I have to talk about it every day, right? Every day, right? Otherwise, right? And of course, as the years pass, right? If he uses my scene in that farce of a David Fincher film, right? Right, which perhaps he did as a result of our condition, right? He's letting it be a Netflix film because the spell is broken, right? But at any rate, right? Then I can get a lawyer, right, without having to put any money up front because I can show them the scene and they can say, okay, right? Because if he uses it, he has to use it as it is, right? If he changes it at all, there's no magic, right? It was a moment of blind rage, and that's how it's done, right? So in that way, perhaps we'll reach some sort of legal amicability in due time, right? But if he doesn't use it, and that's his right, I'm damn sure never going to watch it. I'm going to have someone else watch it and tell me if they see, I get the feeling, right? Last night, somebody took their well-manicured hands, smeared their fucking DNA all over this book, opened it up, and had a nice little read. And that's just the middle. It's just the middle half. I don't want to yell. But 6 days. 6 days of creation. Before the day of rest. I don't know what he wants from me. You know, beyond that he wants me to die. Right? That it's a sick game to him. Right? When I'm not doing anything. I'm just putting my shapes together. Right? He's turned it into, right, this intellectual, like, oh, we're playing, right? When all he ever had to do was just reach out like a normal person, right? Write me a letter, send me an email, give me a call, right? He had my phone number forever, right? Instead, right? I don't know. I want us to reconcile. We don't have to be close, but, right? We need to look each other in the eye, right? I want us to each have our holy books, right? Hand on the Bible, hand on the Torah, which of course means nothing to him, but I'm going to record it, right? Is there a formula where the two of us persist in this way for 20 years? No, he's going to murder me long before that. Right? These are the golden years of his life. Like he's supposed to just accept he has a psychic phantom, right? Right? He's supposed to accept that he has, right? That we're both just like boom right there, right? That it's just an ugly, right? Like, oh, I could kill you. Oh, I could kill you. Right? When we could just, right, embrace, right? Call it quits. Call it brothers in hate, right? Right? I don't want anything to do with him, but I have to talk about it. He went too far, right? It's not funny anymore, right? It's not, oh, look how cool we are anymore, right? And like I'm gonna have 2 or 3 people that'll help me soon. I'm sure of it. Doesn't take much, right? Right? And then it's, right? And he'll just murder me, right? That's like, right? Like, oh gosh, how unfortunate he's lost his mind, right? Right? This took 4 hours to make, right? Same with this, with his wife, right? Subdivision of 42, 7 times 6, right? This took 30 hours to make, right? My point is that everything that you see here on this channel, right, is in no way a reflection of madness, right? Eccentricities, right? Trifles, perhaps, right? Right? Quentin, right, alleges stark raving lunacy, right? But these are his games, right? He just doesn't know how to play them, right? So I live in perpetual fear because he likes to lie. Like, these are the games that he likes to do, right? He likes to do one thing and then say another thing, right? He stuck his nose up at me and turned his back on me, but he wanted me to talk to him, right? He tells everyone that I'm insane when he actually is perpetuating a diseased campaign against my body and soul, right? With the same tactics that I could put on him, but he's a coward, right? Right? He has no right to still be upset with me, right? I did everything, right? He doesn't get to sacrifice me for the movies. That's just sick and depraved, right? Ha 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 ha. Right? Right? So he looks one way and then he goes another way. Right? He tells you he's selling the script on April Fool's Day, right? Because he hopes I'll blow my brains out. Right? And if and when I don't, right, and it's actually time to do something with his final film, he will murder me. Right? Or he'll pay me. Right? He's a dangerous, evil man. Right? He doesn't see anything that's good in his life. Right? He is so crusted over with bile and deception and guile and cunning. Right? That he's drowning in it. Right? That I'm the first person ever to actually hold him accountable. Right? That everyone around him has just been patting him on the back saying, good job, good for you. Right? Never once considering, right, the ramifications of, right, how he operates, right, the things that he does to people, right, implants himself inside of people's minds, violates their minds, just like Charles Manson in his novel, not mine. Right? This is what writers do. Right? They change the name, they change the locale, right, and it's always autobiographical, isn't it? Right? So he puts himself inside of the nastiest fucking man of the 20th century. Right? Right? The successor to Jack the Ripper. That's who Quentin puts himself in. Right? So this is my fear. This is my fear. Right? I have regrets. I have regrets over not giving him what he wanted, over, right, being trusting, right? And in his mind, he was like, oh, he saw it as a declaration of intent. When I was just a coward. That's all. That's all. I was alone, and I looked to him. So now he thinks I need to die. Right? There's nothing else to consider there. Right? If he doesn't have any issue with me, right, then he has no problems reaching out, and he has no problems bringing this to an amicable resolution. Right? Hardy har har har. Right? And he never will. He'll just be a Hollywood jerk forever. Right? I can't stress how dangerous this is. I can't stress how ugly and evil it is. Right? Every morning when I wake up, right, to the moment I go to sleep, and this is true for him too, right? Though he's doing everything he can to like make people believe it's otherwise, right? Our thoughts are constantly filtered through the other's heads, right? That he's, right? It's a case study. This is not, right? It's a case study in remote viewing, right? That we have a hive mind now, right? Is it all just him, right? Are there other people involved, right? Whomever is involved, whomever has spent a substantial amount of time watching me, right, is now included in this thing. But Quentin gets off, right, on imitating other people, right? So it could all be him. I do acknowledge that. I don't believe that's true, but it could be. My point is that, right, he's created a dangerous psychology in his mind, as well as mine, right? Of course, but, right, this is my point, right? This is why we're talking about it, right? Because he's not well in his mind, right? It doesn't matter what he says, right? Hardy har har har, right? It's a joke to him, right? It's a joke, right? But these things that we're talking about here, right? Dangerous. It's a dangerous psychology, right? And maybe he like eats Xanax all day, like I don't know, maybe he's just drinking scotch or tequila all day, like I don't know. I don't know, but at any rate, right? He is in a state, right? He is in a state, right? And he's so close to me, right, that he can torture me whenever he wants. Right? And anyone can do these things. He's not special. He's just clever, right? So he tells everyone that I'm insane, right? And he gets some sort of kink out of it, right? And I don't know how they can believe that. Like honestly, like it's so dense, it's so textured, it's so rich. 130,000 words, right? That's not, right? Mike Simpson knows. Mike Simpson fucking knows, right? I sent him my first letter right after Tribeca. Right? And so whatever the fuck Quentin, right, decided to do, right, no matter what he told him, right, obviously he told him, oh, that guy's insane. And then when I sent the love poems, he said, see, there it is. Right? And this is what I was talking about in the last video, right? He lies to me because he's lying to them. Right? And so now, right, it's time for, like, I have to counter all of his lies. Right? Like, that's the point. Right? Like, I could care less about him running my name through the mud. Right? Like, I don't care about that, right? But the evil that he's perpetrated upon me, right, that he can always deny, right, that he gets some sort of like sick thrill out of, right? I have to talk about that forever, right? For the rest of his life until we're reconciled, right, or until he murders me, right? That this is, right, these are the stakes, right? They've never been higher, right? Oh gosh, I don't know, how unfortunate, he's lost his mind, right? It's a shallow, arrogant answer, right? Devoid of meaning, right? Devoid of soul. And anyone who accepts that is a shallow, arrogant ass as well, right? You don't spend all of this time, right? 346 videos, however many videos, right? 130,000 words of a novel, right? Conjuring expressions of madness, right? It doesn't work that way. And again, right? A plea to the Pope, that's the video. Right? I don't really like talking about it, but it's a dangerous, ugly evil that he can subject me to at any time, and it's a joke to him, right? That he can always deny. Everyone around him, right? That just says, oh well, Quentin knows best. That man's insane. How unfortunate, right? They insulate a high depravity, right? A high hideous evil, right? That no court can ever try you on, right? And so this is why I set up the meetup group, right? And I'm sure no one's going to come, right? But right, I have to start making friends, to help me. I need help, So I suppose I'll leave you with a song. Sang out of tune, would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song, and I'll try not to sing out of key. Oh, I get by with a little help from my friends. I get high with a little help from my friends. Yes, I'm gonna try with a little help from my friends. Feel when my love is away? Does it worry you to be alone? How do I feel by the end of the day? Are you sad because you're you're on your own. No, I get by with a little help from my friends. Yes, I get high with a little help from my friends. I'm gonna try with a little help from my friends. Do you need anybody? I need somebody to love. Do it be anybody? I just want someone to love. How do I feel when What do you feel when you turn out the lights? I'm not certain, but I know that it's mine. Oh, I get by with a little help from my friends. Yes, I get high with a little help from my friends. Yes, I'm gonna try with a little help from my friends. Do you need anybody? I need somebody to love. Could it be anybody? I just want someone to love. Whoa, I get by with a little help from my friends. Yes, I get by with a little help from my friends. Yes, I'm gonna try with a little help from my friends. Yes, I get by with a little help from my friends. So, I meant to say this at the beginning of the video, but make sure you hit the notification button. So, leave a comment, like, comment, subscribe, share. Right? Help bring this to an amicable resolution. Pray for me. Pray for Quentin. Right? It's so ugly. It's the ugliest thing that possibly can be. And I'm not proud of how I behaved in the moment. The only moment that mattered. But now, right? All he can do is be evil. Right? And he gets some sick kick out of it. So, I'm talking about it every day. See what's good in your life. Hold those dear to you close. Know that life is not an accident. Let me know what you think. God bless.